Damn, what's going on? What's going on? We back, we back. Damn. It's looking kind of ugly out there, man. So, I guess we all know, when it comes to Terrence Crawford, that, some fights weren't happening. You know what I mean? Obviously, we know the fight, no one was offered a deal as it pertains to, Ugas or Thurman. And when Porter and Crawford talked, Crawford told him that he couldn't do that fight right now because he had other plans coming up right now. So that a fight between him and Porter wouldn't be feasible. Keith Thurman tried to start off negotiations anyway, sent out an offer, and it was just pretty much just flat turned down, and then they're not trying to negotiate anything with them whatsoever. Gary Russell, they're not even returning his phone calls. So that's what's up with that. So the only person that, let's say with some kind of a name, has some kind of notoriety that could be a possible matchup for the end of the year is Kell Brooks. But then I guess the news from Mike Coppinger is that Kell Brooks was offered $1.5 million to do that fight. Which is beyond crazy. I mean, Kell Brooks should be able to make $1 million plus fighting in the UK against anybody. He should be able to make that money against anybody. That's the kind of money that he could have made being on the undercard of the Dillian White versus Povetkin. He could make that money doing things like that. So unless he's in some kind of crazy, weird pinch where there's no bread at all and he needs something right now, that's clearly not going to happen, That I would say is as bad as, if not worse, than when they offered Danny Garcia a $3 million flat fee for a pay-per-view. According to Eddie Hearn, his words were that Kell Brooks wants a lot of money for the fight. He wants to do the fight, but he wants to get paid a lot of money for it. He said Terrence Crawford wants to get a lot of money for it, and that he's gonna try. He can see about seeing if they get something situated where the funds, they can get the funds that are necessary in order to make the fight. I think Bob Arum's kind of trying to set up maybe a fight without Eddie Hearn, just due to the fact he keeps screaming out that, Kell Brooks is a free agent. Kell Brooks is a free agent, which pretty much means that he can work, talk to him directly and get a fight directly. Now, the 1.5 clearly makes absolutely no sense. What exactly would be the point of bringing yourself down to a weight that you haven't been in a long time, a weight that you're supposedly uncomfortable with? What would be the point of coming all the way down to that weight when you technically have other options? You have other options. I mean, you can call Al Heyman and try to set up a fight between, you and Keith Thurman in the U.S., where it's, you fight him in the U.S., but it's pay-per-view in the U.K. They could probably even set up something where you can just have Keith Thurman come down to the UK, because he'd be willing to do that, and just do the fight over there. It can still be in a closed environment, in a bubble, but it'd be done in the UK just so time-wise it works, So time-wise it works. So it's, you obviously get the UK at a good time. Or maybe even just do it in the US, but do it in the afternoon. Just so you have, so you're good in the UK as it pertains to that pay-per-view. And automatically put yourself into a space where you make a lot more money even without the gate. That's a fight where you can just take some of that Showtime money and get paid, doing it that way. Showtime can put up some of that money, apply it to Kell Brooks, and just do the fight that way. But either way, there's a fight that's available that will be substantially worth more than that. Substantially more. You're better off doing something like that. You're better off seeing if you can set up if Amir Khan is willing to fight now and doing something like that and get paid that money. There's other directions he can go other than this. Mikey Garcia looks like he's not going to get the Manny Pacquiao fight, right? Maybe you can get a Mikey Garcia fight. But there's other options that, you can get. See, Top Rank might minimize what the worth of their fighters are. Their fighters might minimize what their worth is. But it doesn't mean that others are going to minimize what they're worth. It's not going to happen. Others are not going to minimize what their worth is. 1.5, that's the same amount of money they just offered Teofimo Lopez to fight him, Lomachenko. And both those guys are getting paid substantially less money than they should be getting paid for that fight, by the way. With the name and the notoriety that both those fighters have, they're both getting paid substantially less than they should be getting paid for those fights. For that particular fight. Substantially less than what they should be getting paid. But, when you sign the Top Rank, you take that nice little upfront check, signing check, bonus check. By now you got to understand what you're getting yourself into. But the thing is that, so somebody like Terrence Crawford, they say, hey, you're going to do this fight, we're only going to give you $3 million, $3.5 million for this fight, $4 million. I guess he would understand just due to the fact he understands the place that he's in. And Bob Arum is going to ride on this, it's a pandemic, BS, as much as he can. And he's going to utilize that to pay these fighters as little as possible and make sure that his pockets are still chunky, fat. He's going to do that. But if you're going to want to get somebody like a Kell Brooks, and Kell Brooks is going to basically be sacrificing himself for this next fight, he's not going to do that unless he's getting paid a substantial amount of money. And $1.5 million, I don't see it doing it. I don't see $2.5 million doing it. I think for a Crawford fight, he would have to take in at least $4 million. You got to guarantee him something like $4 million. Or even if it's something like this $2.5 million, $3 million, and he gets all the pay-per-view from the UK. Something like that. Something like an Amir Khan deal. Maybe. Because it makes no sense. Especially if he starts going around and starts looking at his options. Especially since Keith Thurman was like, hey, yeah, I want to fight you. And with Keith Thurman, it would make sense anyway. You came and trashed Keith Thurman because he's coming off a loss. So if he was to fight a Kell Brooks, it's like, okay, whatever. He's coming off a loss. Kind of like whatever. So I'd say don't be surprised if something like that doesn't end up happening. Like, let's say if he's really willing to come down, and somebody like PBC may be snatching him up for a fight and doing a Keith Thurman versus Kell Brooks down over here in September, like October, like November, something of that nature. I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever. Or January, beginning of the year, something of that nature. But do I personally believe this fight's gonna happen? If they really did start out that low, I'm gonna have to say no. The fight's not gonna happen. And I think what might end up happening is Terrence Crawford not fighting at all this year, or he might end up fighting some undefeated, I don't know who, but some undefeated Eastern European fighter. What's his name can also, if he wanted to, Kell Brooks wanted to, he could just also stay at 154 pounds and try to get a fight against Zhu. Casa Zhu's son, who just got a big, huge win in Australia. Knocking out, Jeff Horn. It just seems to be a normal occurrence from him since the Terrence Crawford fight. Especially since he moved up to 154. He should have kept his ass down at 147. But, yeah, that could be an option for him, too. Do it in Australia where they have crowds. And still do UK pay-per-view and make your money off of that. options. The man has options. So due to those options, with what this man is being offered right now, I just don't see it happening. And with what Top Rank is trying to offer people, just period in general, I don't see how he fights any kind of name, since they're not willing to put up the money in order to get these fights done. And they're not willing to let him go to these other networks to fight. But we'll see. For now, like, subscribe, share. I'm out.